Have you ever noticed something that feels deeply unfair? The people who seem most willing to bend the truth, break promises, exploit others, and ignore their conscience often appear to rise to the very top. Meanwhile, the people who agonize over doing the right thing often struggle, hesitate, second-guess themselves, and sometimes get left behind. Think about figures like Donald Trump, Elon Musk, Vladimir Putin, or Benjamin Netanyahu. Whether you admire them or despise them, all have been accused repeatedly of saying one thing and doing another. Yet millions of people continue to support them. Why? And what does that say about us? Are people with weak consciences actually better adapted for success? Or is there something much stranger going on? Today we're diving into the psychology of conscience, power, deception, and why so many people are drawn to leaders who appear willing to do what others won't. Firstly, the conscience problem. Psychologists often describe conscience as an internal regulator. It's the voice that says, don't lie, don't cheat, don't hurt people, even when nobody is watching. A strong conscience can be a tremendous social asset. It helps build trust. It encourages cooperation. It allows communities to function, but it also comes with costs. People with strong consciences tend to experience more guilt, more self-doubt, and more internal conflict. Researchers studying personality consistently find that people high in conscientiousness and agreeableness spend more time considering how their actions affect others. That sounds noble, but it also slows decision-making. If you're constantly asking, is this fair? Could this hurt someone? Am I doing the right thing? You're carrying a weight that some people simply don't carry. Psychology has a concept called the Dark Triad. 3 personality traits: narcissism, Machiavellianism, psychopathy. People high in these traits are not necessarily criminals. In fact, many become highly successful. Why? Because they're often willing to do things others won't. Research has repeatedly shown that individuals high in Machiavellianism are more likely to manipulate social situations for personal gain. People with psychopathic traits often display reduced fear, reduced guilt, and greater willingness to take risks. Think about that. If you're willing to promise something today and reverse course tomorrow without losing sleep, you've eliminated one of the biggest psychological obstacles most people face: your conscience. Before anyone gets angry, this is not about whether these figures are good or bad. It's about a psychological pattern. Trump has made countless statements that later contradicted previous positions. His supporters often don't seem bothered by this. In many cases, they admire it. Elon Musk has repeatedly announced timelines, goals, and intentions that later changed dramatically, yet millions continue to view him as a visionary. Putin has a long history of strategic ambiguity and contradictory messaging. Netanyahu has frequently shifted positions and coalitions based on changing political realities. Different countries, different ideologies, different goals. Yet there is a common characteristic: an apparent willingness to detach words from actions whenever circumstances require. To many critics, this looks dishonest. To many supporters, it looks strong. Why? Because consistency is not actually what people are looking for. What many people want is effectiveness. If a leader appears capable of winning, people often forgive inconsistencies they would never tolerate in their neighbors. So why people admire this behavior? Here's where things get uncomfortable. Many people secretly envy what they publicly condemn. Most people have experienced moments when they wanted to say exactly what they thought, ignore social expectations, pursue their own interests, stop worrying about what everyone else thinks, but their conscience stopped them. Then they see someone who appears free of these constraints, someone who doesn't apologize, someone who doubles down, someone who seems immune to shame, and part of them thinks, I wish I could do that. Psychologists call this vicarious identification. People can become attracted to individuals who embody traits they suppress within themselves. The leader becomes a symbolic release valve. They live out impulses that followers don't allow themselves to express. Is conscience actually a burden? In some ways, yes. Conscience is a burden. It creates anxiety, guilt, regret, moral conflict. But the absence of conscience creates a different problem. A person without meaningful moral restraint can gain short-term advantages, yet societies depend on trust. Businesses depend on trust. Relationships depend on trust. Civilizations depend on trust. The same qualities that help someone rise rapidly can eventually destroy the systems that allowed them to rise in the first place. History is filled with examples of powerful people who climbed higher than everyone else and then collapsed spectacularly. So who ignores their conscience and who follows it? Psychologists generally find two broad responses to conscience. The first group treats conscience as an obstacle. These individuals tend to prioritize outcomes: winning, status, power, money, influence. If conscience interferes with those goals, they reinterpret the situation until the discomfort disappears. The second group treats conscience as a compass. They may achieve less wealth, less status, less power, but they often experience greater alignment between their values and their actions. One group asks, "What can I get away with?" The other asks, "What kind of person do I want to be?" These are fundamentally different psychological operating systems. So in conclusion, why do people with apparently little conscience often seem to succeed? Because conscience imposes limits, and people without those limits can move faster, can take bigger risks, make harder decisions, exploit opportunities others refuse to touch. But that's only half the story. The deeper question isn't why these individuals succeed. The deeper question is why millions admire them. Perhaps it's because they represent something many people secretly desire: freedom from guilt, freedom from doubt, freedom from the exhausting burden of moral restraint. But if everyone lived that way, society would collapse. Which means the very people we admire for escaping conscience may only succeed because so many others still have one. And that leaves us with an uncomfortable question. Would you actually want to live in a world where nobody had a conscience? Or do you only admire those who seem to switch theirs off when it benefits them? Let me know what you think in the comments. Please subscribe, and as always, thank you for listening.